Good evening.
Buenas noches.
Welcome to the Midtown Community Cluster Training. I am Yolanda Brown, the Chief Academic Officer here in Atlanta Public Schools, and I'm really excited to have you participate with the Division of Academics as we review our two new universal screeners, our Academic and Social, Emotional, and Behavior Universal Screeners, MAP, and our BASC-3 BESS. Also, you'll learn more tonight about our school-based intervention block, and then you'll learn more about our Securely app. So with that, we hope that you will remain for the entirety of this community cluster training, and we look forward to your comments and your feedback after the session is over. And with that, I will turn it over to one of my assistant superintendents, Dr. Selena Florence, for teaching and learning. And thank you, and we appreciate you attending tonight. Dr. Florence?
Good evening again, parents. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for our family and community cluster meetings. Here are our meeting norms for this evening. Be polite and respectful to others. Ask questions in the chat. We have team members there prepared to answer questions for you. Stay focused on the topics at hand. We have 4 topics for this evening. Let's try to stay focused on those 4 topics. Be patient and assume everyone is doing their best. So our agenda for the evening, you just heard our welcome from our Chief Academic Officer. We will have some introductions in just a moment. We will talk about our K-12 Universal Screeners, NWEA MAP, and the BASC-3 BESS. We will have conversations about intervention and enrichment. We will talk about Securely. We'll have time for questions and answers, and then we will ask you to give us feedback about tonight's session. So here is a little bit about the Division of Academics. So you just heard from our Chief Academic Officer, Yolanda Brown. My name is Selena Florence, and I am the Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning. I will turn it over to my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Good evening. I am Tatika Lovett, Assistant Superintendent for the Office of Student Services.
Good evening, Midtown Cluster. I am Aaliyah Henderson Rosser, Assistant Superintendent for Instructional Technology.
So that is our org chart, a little more about our division. Within the Division of Academics, we have 3 different departments. Teaching and Learning is the first department. It is made up of Curriculum and Instruction, ESOL, DLI, and World Languages, Early Learning, CTAE and Signature Programming, Social Emotional Learning, or SEL, and JROTC. The Student Services Department is made up of Health Services, Student Supports and Interventions, Special Education, and Summer and After-School Programs. And finally, the Instructional Technology Department is made up of Media Services, Instructional Development and Design, Instructional Technology, and Virtual Programs, which includes AVA. I will turn it over at this time to Dr. Katika Levitt.
It's important to note as we are going through the presentation tonight that our strategic plan for 2020 through 2025 serves as the anchor for our work in the Division of Academics. We are indeed building on our legacy here in APS. Next slide, please. Here you have our strategic priorities. They are fostering academic excellence for all, building a culture of student support, equipping and empowering leaders and staff, and creating a system of support for schools. Next slide, please. Taking that information, we have developed something that we call the APS 5. And this really is our opportunity to really capture the work that we do in the Division of Academics in a concise way. So you'll see here that we have 5 areas, starting with the area of data. For data, we are utilizing data to drive all instructional decisions and ensure equitable outcomes for all students. For curriculum and instruction, we're implementing rigorous and culturally relevant and linguistically responsive curriculums with fidelity in all core content areas and instructional best practices in Tier 1 instruction. For whole child and intervention, we're implementing a whole child system of supports that integrates social emotional learning, behavior, wellness, and a comprehensive academic intervention plan. For personalized learning, we're utilizing flexible learning tools, technology integration, and targeted instruction to personalize learning for all students. And finally, signature programming. We are strengthening the implementation of signature programming across all schools. And you'll see here that our APS 5 is grounded in two of our strategic priorities: fostering academic excellence for all and building a culture of student support. Next slide, please. At this time, I'll turn it back over to Dr. Selena Florence.
So good evening again and welcome. This portion of our session will focus on the NWEA MAP, our new universal screener for academics. So the purpose of the MAP growth assessment is it's a computer adaptive assessment that gives us more information about how your child is learning and their growth over time. Computer adaptive just means the test gets harder or easier depending on how your child responds to the questions. We take the MAP growth assessment in both math and reading. It is a part of our APS academic recovery plan. It also serves as the first time APS has had a K-12 universal screener. So all students in APS have taken the MAP growth assessment. The assessment is connected to our strategic plan, as Katika just talked about. It helps us to identify student learning needs at the school level, so teachers are able to respond to specific student learning needs. It helps us to set and monitor student goals. It guides instruction, Tier 1 instruction, as well as intervention, and it helps us to know how much students learn and grow throughout the course of the year. So students just finished their first MAP assessment in September. They'll take the MAP assessment again in the winter, and they'll take it a third time in the spring. So a little bit about the MAP assessment suite. There are two components of the suite: MAP reading fluency. MAP reading fluency is given to all of our pre-K through second grade students, as well as some of our third grade students. It is a way for us to assess foundational reading skills. So this assessment is looking to see if students know their letters, if they know sounds, if they're able to start decoding small words. It's really assessing foundational skills. It's a 20-minute assessment, and it gives teachers information to be able to group students according to their specific needs. This assessment is given in both English and in Spanish. The MAP growth assessment, which you see on the right, is given to all K-12 students in both math and literacy. It also gives us an accurate view of student learning needs and growth over time. So again, teachers can use this data to group students based on need, whether they be high achievers, whether they be students in the middle, or those who need additional support. It is also given in English and in Spanish. It's available in English and Spanish. So a little bit more about MAP growth. Again, the questions get harder or easier depending on how your student responds. It measures what students know right now and what they're ready to learn next. It measures both growth and achievement over time. Our students that participate in Spanish DLI programs take both the English and Spanish assessment. And our Spanish-speaking English learner newcomers, whose Spanish literacy is stronger than English literacy, will take the Spanish assessment. And again, the MAP growth test is given to all K-12 students in both math and reading. The MAP fluency assessment is given to all of our pre-K through second grade students. It is online, it's foundational skills, that's what it's assessing. It's an oral reading assessment for beginning readers through independent readers. It measures comprehension of material that is read aloud to students, and it also uses speech recognition so that students can talk directly into their microphones, and it scores them based on the recording. So as I said earlier, we finished the MAP assessment back in September. So you should have seen a family report to come home that gave you more information about how your child performed on the MAP assessment. So this is a sample family report. And what the family report does is it gives you a summary of key results for a given test term. So you should have received your fall results for your students. It also gives you a summary of each test that was taken. So for our students, you would have had a summary of both reading and math. It provides data to let you know if students are on track for state assessments, like our milestones assessment, and also the SAT and ACT for older students. It provides your child's strengths and weaknesses, and it also provides you with information for how to help your child at home. So again, this is a sample assessment. At the top, you see questions specific to questions you might have as a parent. It's helping you to know how to read and understand the report. You see the math section that gives you the average achievement and high growth. And then you also see the reading section at the bottom that gives you the achievement again and the growth. You should have also received with your family report a family guide. And the family guide just gives you more information to help you understand the MAP assessment and how to read the report that you just received. So at the top, you see a little bit about how the assessment works. You see what MAP growth actually measures down at the bottom. It tells you information about your child's RIT score, which is the score they received in the fall, winter, and spring. And then it also has some common questions for you as parents. At the bottom, you see a website that also gives you more information for families, for how to work with your child at home, and other resources. So this is a family guide that you should have received with your family report back in September. At this time, we will pause for any questions. I wanted to go back to this slide for the parent that asked about, is the test given in both English and Spanish? So students participating in the Spanish DLI program will take both the Spanish and English assessments, and our Spanish-speaking English newcomers, whose Spanish literacy is stronger than English literacy, will take the Spanish assessment. So just to clarify who is taking which assessment. Are there any other questions?
Okay, looks like we have cleared all questions. Again, we want to encourage parents who are watching to please put the questions in the chat and we will be answering them throughout the presentations. So at this time, we will move on to the BESS-3, or the Behavioral and Emotional Screening System. And this is our first universal screener for behavioral or social emotional health and well-being. And I'm excited to introduce to you Dr. Shannon Hervey, our Director of Student Intervention and Support. And Dr. Hervey is going to do an overview for us tonight and get us started at this time. Shannon, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening. As part of the Whole Child Framework, the district secured its first ever universal social emotional behavior screener, which is the BESS-3 BESS. The BESS screens for a variety of behavior and emotional disorders that can lead to adjustment problems. This tool is a quick and efficient way to screen students ages 3 to 18 for behavior and emotional risks. Next slide. So you may be asking, why screen for social, emotional, behavioral health? In addition to learning more about the risks all students may be subject to, the beauty of this screener is that it will help to put students on the radar of school staff who otherwise may not be there. What we have learned is that schools may not be aware of the inner and emotional struggles of students who don't advocate for themselves, or students with good grades and typical behavior. The data from this screener will create an evidence-based pathway for students to receive additional supports, provide information that will help schools to focus effort, time, and resources on students who have the highest needs, and will aid schools in making big picture programming decisions in support of students. Next slide. The screener will be administered twice per school year, once in the fall and once in the spring. The fall administration window opens September the 16th and closed October the 1st. The spring administration window will open February the 15th and close March the 1st. Screening was completed during a student's homeroom period, advisement period, or during the period designated at the school level. Parents will receive a score report following each administration window. And for the fall administration, parents can expect student reports to be sent home beginning this week. The World Languages Department worked collaboratively with Student Support and Intervention to ensure that the needs of English learners and their families were addressed throughout the screening process. And the World Languages Department will continue to work with schools to ensure that all families understand their child's screener report. Next slide. Digital access of the screener was available in English and Spanish. Pen and paper administration was available in multiple languages, including English, Spanish, Arabic, Portuguese, Farsi, Chinese, and French. One-to-one or group administration opportunities were available for students who needed support to complete the screener. And parents and teachers were provided an opportunity to complete the screener on behalf of students who have mild intellectual disabilities that impeded their ability to complete the student form. Next slide. Any parent of a student ages 8 to 18 who did not wish for their child to take the student self-assessment portion of the BESS were invited to return the opt-out form to their child's school. Parents only need to opt out of the screener once during each school year. Next slide. The BESS will analyze a student's behavior from 3 perspectives, that being the teacher, the parent, and the student self-report. Students ages 8 to 18 will complete the self-assessment. However, screener information for students younger than age 8 will be provided by teachers and parents. Teachers provided screener information for students in grades kindergarten through 12th grade. Parents were invited to provide screener information for students in grades pre-K through 12th grade. Teachers and parents spent 5 minutes or less to complete the screener, and students spent roughly 5 to 15 minutes to complete the student self-assessment. Next slide. Take a moment to take note of the screener indexes and their explanations. These acronyms you will see again in the next few slides as I preview a sample score report. The screener will produce student data that is measured in risk. Teacher and parent forms will reveal whether a student is at risk for externalizing behaviors such as hyperactivity or aggression, internalizing behaviors such as anxiety or depression, or adaptive skills deficits, or problems with communication or social skills. Student forms will reveal whether a student is at risk for internalizing behaviors, self-regulation deficits, such as hyperactivity or attention problems, or personal adjustment deficits, such as relationship problems, self-esteem challenges, or self-reliance issues. Students are given an overall score, which is the BERIT score, that indicates how far their score is from the average of the norm group. The color coding gives you a glance at how risk is measured as normal risk, elevated risk, or extremely elevated risk. Next slide. This is an example of a score report for a student that was completed by a teacher. We want you to have an opportunity to view an example of what a screener report could tell you for each student. Let's pause for a few seconds so that you can review. The next few slides will provide more explanation of the individual components of this score report. Next slide. Let's start by taking a closer look at our sample report. At the top of the score report, you see who the rater or the respondent was, the validity index summary, and the assessment results at a glance. If you look in the column that says assessment results, you see the BERI, or the Behavioral and Emotional Risk Index, which indicates how far away from the norm average your student scored. Remember the color coding that I referenced earlier. The red dot next to the BERI tells us that this student has scored as extremely elevated in risk, which may indicate a need for support. Also noted is that internal risk, which measures risk for behaviors associated with depression or anxiety, is slightly more of a concern than external risk, which measures risk for behaviors associated with hyperactivity, conduct, or aggression. That being said, since this student scored extremely elevated for both internal and external risks, support may be needed in both areas. Next slide. The validity indicators provide an explanation of the extent to which this particular score report may be considered valid and that you can trust the outcome of the report. Validity index indicators will show as green for acceptable, yellow for caution, or red for extreme caution. The F index will let you know how harsh or overly negative the rater was in their responses. The consistency index will let you know if there were different responses provided to questions that are similar in nature. The response pattern index lets you know if a pattern was detected that may indicate that the rater selected answers randomly or in a pattern. Here you see that the consistency index is caution, which means that there was a question of how consistent the rater was in responding to questions that were asking similar content. Next slide. Now let's take an opportunity to review some of the teacher responses. The teacher has noted the following as areas of strength in the student, as noted by the almost always column associated with positive behaviors. Here we see that this teacher has indicated that the student is well organized and does well at getting people to work together. If we look at areas of growth, we can see that the teacher has noted the following concerns or areas of growth as indicated by the almost always column associated with negative behaviors. This student, according to the teacher, worries, has poor self-control, has a short attention span, is easily stressed, and appears tense. Next slide. You may be asking, so what happens next after the screener? The screener is a starting point for next steps in determining the best course of action to support students. After schools review data screener reports, school-based student support staff are meeting with students who are extremely elevated or elevated risk to confirm that risk and identify need. They will then contact parents to discuss the risk and recommend a strategy of school support. After that, they will support the student in a manner that is agreed upon by the school, the parent, and the student, and then monitor progress. Next slide. There are many, many interventions that schools have access to and can employ. Here you see sample interventions that schools may recommend to support the needs of your student. Based on the needs that have been identified, schools can determine additional interventions and strategies to utilize for support. There is not a cookie cutter approach to supporting students, so the work that will go into recommending and tailoring support to fit the needs of students will be essential in helping students to make progress, succeed, and thrive. Next slide. If you would like to learn more about the BAS3 BESS, we have added a page to our Student Support and Interventions Department webpage that provides in-depth information about the screener. To access this page, please visit the APS website noted at the top of this slide. Here, parents have access to some of the most widely asked questions that I have received regarding this screener. Thank you for your time. Are there any questions?
Shannon, there is one question that I'd like for you to answer if you don't mind.
Okay.
This is a question from one of our parents. Will there be a guide that accompanies the scores for parents for the BAS3?
That is a great question. And so absolutely, I have created a one-page easy reference sheet that will go home to parents with the score report. And what that will do is similar to what you just heard in this presentation. It gives you the condensed version so that you can understand what these scores mean and what the report looks like when you get it in your hand. Okay, and then we have another question. I'm curious to know who in each school has access to the results of each student's BAS3 BESS test. Wondering how bias is addressed and measured in teachers' assessment. So that's a great question as well. So in each school recommended school screener ambassadors to be trained. And those were the individuals, the professionals within the school who were tasked in being trained on the BESS and Review 360, which is the platform that houses it, but also in being able to implement that screener as well as respond to students after the screener has been done. So the individuals that the school principal selected to be designated as the school screener ambassadors have access to it. As well, the teachers for the students who took the teacher screener portion of it would also have access to the information for their students that they screened. The question about how bias is addressed, at the recommendation of the vendor, 6 weeks is what was recommended for teachers to know students, a minimum of 6 weeks before taking the screener. Every student, what we hope if they started on the first day of school, then that 6 weeks after hits right at about the opening of the administration window. One thing that we put out there for our school screener ambassadors to communicate to staff was that any teacher who did not feel that they were ready or knew enough about the student that they could decline in taking the screener. So we did not want to have teachers to take the screener if they did not feel like they knew those students well enough. Okay, so how will this information get to parents? And so schools are in the process of not only still meeting with students and contacting parents, but also preparing those reports, preparing to print them so that they can get sent home. Are there any other questions?
Shannon, there was a question about the testing dates for the MAP assessment. I think those were posted in the chat. So the winter assessment will occur November 29th through December 17th. And then the spring assessment for the MAP will be March 7th through March 28th. So those are the two testing windows for the MAP assessment. The BAS will occur one more time. Is that correct, Shannon? In the spring.
That is correct, yes. And that window opens February the 15th. That's our next administration.
All right, so we will move on to the next section of our meeting. Thank you, Dr. Hervey. So we wanted to give you some information about intervention and enrichment in our schools. So each school this year was required to have an intervention or enrichment block, class, or course. All elementary schools and some middle schools will have an intervention or enrichment block. Those happen 4 days a week, 2 days for reading and 2 days for math. All other middle schools and high schools will implement intervention during a class or a course. Data will be used, just like our MAP data that we just talked about, will be used to help teachers know what students need during intervention or enrichment. And schools will use the provided HMH and APEX programs during intervention time. Schools have the autonomy to decide how enrichment looks in their building. We left that up to them. So we've given you some examples of what that may look like. One of those is Renzulli Learning. That tool was provided for schools. Renzulli is a digital learning platform that provides students with an opportunity to engage in personalized academic enrichment. So as students take a small screener and it builds out a personalized learning plan for them in the platform. So they have an opportunity to work independently on things that are interesting to them, things that they like to do. Other options for enrichment, schools could have had a makerspace, they could have clubs, they could have interdisciplinary units, community problem solving, all kinds of options for what enrichment could look like. So this could look many different ways within APS, depending on how the school decided to structure their enrichment time. So back to intervention. As we said earlier, all schools have an intervention block, class, or course. For elementary schools, that is for 30 minutes. For middle schools, that is 45 minutes. And for high schools, that's 90 minutes. Our focus during intervention time is on literacy and math. And we are using a comprehensive assessment system that includes our universal screener and also progress monitoring tools. So we said the map happens in fall, winter, and spring. So teachers are progress monitoring between those assessments to make sure that students are progressing and moving in the right direction. So a little bit about the structure of intervention. So there are 4 main components that you should see during an intervention block, class, or course. We call it the workshop model. So on the left-hand side, you see whole group learning. So this is time for the teacher to work with students, introduce the lesson for the day, and let them know what they are focusing on during their time of intervention. In the middle, you see 3 different rotations. The top rotation is student application, where students spend time working on the platforms that we just spoke about from HMH or Apex. So students spend time working on a platform that is built out a learning path for them based on their specific needs. That's a part of the intervention block. The next part is independent reading. So students have time during the reading days to work on just reading books. During math days, students have time to work on independent math tasks provided by the teacher. So that's the second rotation. The third rotation is small group learning. So students do have time to work with the teacher just on their specific needs, again, based on their data. At the end of the third rotation, students would go back to the whole group learning piece where the teacher would wrap up the lesson and provide next steps for their learning. So again, during our intervention block, class, or course, these are the 4 pieces you would see during that time: student application on their device, independent reading or independent math task, and then finally, small group learning with the teacher. At this time, I will turn it over to Dr. Aaliyah Henderson-Rosser. You can ask intervention questions and we will answer those at the end of her time.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Florence. And this is our last block of information. We hope you're hanging in there with us because I'm excited to bring to you our newly acquired Securely parent app. And I just wonder, I have a question for you. If you've ever wondered what your student is doing or are they on task on his or her laptop? Do you want to make sure that your student is navigating the appropriate websites to accomplish his or her homework? If you have ever asked yourself any of these questions, Securely is here to help you manage your students on the internet and ensure that they are using their school-issued device appropriately. So what we're going to do is go into what the Securely Parent app is. We'll do an overview. You can follow along with these steps at the website here, our tiny APS website, as well as use your phone or a mobile device or iPad to access the QR code. This is available to you right now. So after I go through these steps, you can go back to the steps and actually follow along and access the parent app. So let's go over a little bit about what is Securely. It is a parent portal and where now parents can get some peace of mind on what's going on the school issued device that's coming between home and school. Some of the features include pausing the internet. It also gives you online activity notifications that lets you know what your student is doing online. And you also have a real-time online activity feed that can be accessed anywhere on any device, and you can see at any point what your student is doing. So one bit of trivia, did you know that APS is now a 1-to-1 district? That means that every single student in Atlanta Public Schools has been issued a device to bring home. In pre-K and kindergarten, our students have an iPad. In grades 1 through 12, they have a touchscreen Chromebook. You may have seen these devices home at this point, and you should know, and schools should be sending home a device every single day for your student to access some of the robust applications that are out there and to, complete their homework. We do have a video that really helps you understand what tools you have at your fingertips. So let's take a quick look and overview of the Securely video.
That face that is usually covered by her phone has finally made an appearance.
Every time a school chooses Securely, a multi-layered digital defense is put in place. That's why we're so excited your school has chosen Securely and entrusted your child's online safety to us. Whenever your student is on their school device, we're at work behind the scenes protecting them from inappropriate content or flagging activities that might point to self-harm or bullying. Think of us as your extra set of eyes, keeping kids safe in the digital world. In an effort to make your child's online experience as positive as possible, Securely makes it easier for parents to be looped in by providing you with a weekly email, including a snapshot of your child's online activity. But that's just the beginning. Once you download the Securely Home app, you'll have the ability to view a live feed of your child's online activity, including what sites they're visiting and what searches they're making. With Securely Home, you have the option to enable push notifications and receive alerts for any flagged activities, such as self-harm or bullying. But Securely's Home features don't stop when your child leaves school. When school devices come home, the Securely app makes it possible for those devices to play by your rules. Choose to filter your own set of websites and categories. Even hit pause on the internet if you need to. Plus, you're able to set an automated offline schedule for the internet, perfect for dinner or bedtime. For now, be sure to keep an eye out for the email from us containing a download link to the Securely Home app, plus instructions on getting started. Thank you once again for allowing Securely to be part of keeping your child safe online. We look forward to partnering with you in this pursuit.
Amazing. Now that you've got a quick overview of what the Securely app will be able to do for you and your student, I'm going to go over how to access the Securely app, a little bit of what the home screen looks like and what you're able to do there, as well as steps on how to download and additional information about training. So how do you access Securely? We've already sent an email to the email address that's on file in Infinite Campus. At this time, if you're not sure what email address that is, we're going to take some steps to go into Infinite Campus and see what email addresses are listed there. If you need to change those, on the next screen, it shows you how to update contact information. So looking at this screen, once you log in, you click on the More menu. From there, you select Family, Information, and click Update. You'll be able to see and make desired changes at this next screen. You'll see what email addresses and phone numbers are listed there, and then make a change if you need to. Once you've made that change, you click on the blue button that says Update. Now that you've got your email address and it's been updated, you will now have information around how to download the app. This can be downloaded from the iTunes Store or your Google Play Store. Once the app is downloaded, this is what your home screen will actually look like. You will find on the home screen an activity feed of all your students' activities. Any rules that you have set up as a parent will be in the rules section. If there are flagged activities that you may need to be aware of, it will fall under the flagged activity area. Any offline schedules will also be listed here. You will have the ability to pause the internet on your child's device from this screen as well. Now let's take a quick moment and go through each of these menus. So here's the activity feed. You can see that up in the upper left-hand corner. You can also filter these options. You can switch between users and make sure that the activities that are occurring at the earliest time are at the top. In flagged activities, this section shows a list of activities that Securely has actually flagged. They may have some information regarding some search engines some searches that your child has probably done that may indicate harm or bullying. And then this information will be sent to you in an app and notify you in this app that there may be some concern. Under the rules section, this allows you to set and allow and block websites. So if you like your student to go on YouTube to use that for academic purposes, you can, but if you're not as comfortable with YouTube, you can also block YouTube. But you can go in and actually allow certain channels and certain websites. The offline schedule allows parents to set a specific time, and you can do this and it can occur every single day. So if dinner time is from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, you can make sure that the schedule is set in securely and the child will be unable to access the internet at that time. And within the moment, if you want to pause the internet, there is a pause button within the app that lets you do that. You can pause internet connectivity for the device by simply tapping the button on the device in the app, and internet is shut off for that particular school issued device. Now, if this seems to be a little bit overwhelming and you would prefer not to necessarily see a summary email every week, you can unsubscribe to this. So if you see here listed right on the Securely homepage, there is an unsubscribe button that's circled there in red. And you can click on that and unsubscribe to the summary emails that come every week. So that's a little bit about the Securely Home app. On the next page, you can remember to access our tiny APS link or use the QR code, and it'll take you to these steps, simple 5 steps on how to set up your account. And I also want to pause here to talk about training that's coming to your school. We have an educational technology specialist that is assigned to each school that will be doing training for the community at the school, hands-on. You can bring your devices and ask any questions regarding setting up the app and monitoring for academic success for your student. At this time, we'll take questions regarding Securely or the intervention block.
So there is a question about Renzulli. If our school is using Renzulli, are the reports from the assessments sent home? Though we have not directed schools to send those home. Those are more for the teacher to use, and they have been using those in the classroom. So if you would like a copy of that report, schools will be more than happy to send those home. So just request a copy from your child's teacher, but we have not directed them to send those home.
Okay, I see a question around Securely. On our schools making their own decisions on handing out tech, our 5th graders only use the devices in school. Ms. Johnson, the devices should be coming home. If you want to list a school for me, I can reach out and see where they are in the schedule around passing those out. I know that schools are in the process of sending devices home. So if you want to let me know what that school is, I can go and research a little bit and just make sure that they're on the schedule and the devices are coming home. I do see another one, are schools making their own decisions? Yes, I'll make sure that that actually happens for you. And then the second one I see was, can we do all of this through the website as opposed to the app? No, you actually have to use the app to be able to pause the internet and do some of those things. You have to go into the app and make sure that that's downloaded. Okay, I think that's all of our questions for Securely and the intervention block.
All right, parents, we thank you for your questions, for your time tonight. We do ask that you give us some feedback about the session. We are providing several engagements for you throughout this school year. This is just the first. So we want to get your feedback about the session so we can make sure that the next one is just as good as this one. So if you will take a moment and scan the QR code on the screen, it asks you 4 simple questions. The last question asks you if you have any additional questions. So please put those there if you do have any questions for us. Again, we thank you for your time this evening. We hope we did not take up too much of it and that this time was valuable for you. Have a great evening, and we hope to see you next time.